everyone's enjoying your weekend. Yes, it's been a number of days since we did our last live stream. I can't wait to share with you what I have today. In the past few months, the Chinese PLA has been thrown into a wave of purges, unlike anything we've seen before. Recently, some of the PLA's most powerful commanders, all once considered Xi Jinping's trusted allies, have either been dismissed or rumored to be under investigation. This includes Admiral Miao Hua, the man Xi Jinping relied on to manage the PLA political work and personnel, and General He Weidong, the vice chairman of the CMC. Actually, you know what? Let me share the pictures. Oh, here we go. Where did they go? Sorry, here we go. Yes, these two. I've done a couple of programs discussing their downfalls. So if you haven't watched my previous programs, please do so. Although Beijing hasn't confirmed He Weidong's downfall, they haven't denied it either. Major Western media outlets, including the Financial Times, quoting 6 sources, have confirmed the vice chairman's disappearance. And He wasn't the only one. Falling alongside him were a string of top military leaders, the newly promoted commander of the Rocket Force, the commander of the Eastern Theater Command, and several retired generals. All are considered Xi Jinping's loyalists. At first glance, it doesn't make sense. Why would Xi Jinping purge his own inner circle, the very generals he personally fast-tracked to the top? It seems out of character and, frankly, political suicidal, unless something deeper is happening. Maybe the purge isn't being driven by Xi Jinping at all. Maybe it's the work of his political opponents. It has long been rumored that Xi Jinping suffered a stroke during the party's 3rd plenum last summer. While he was incapacitated, party elders reportedly stepped in, and Zhang Youxia has been acting as the de facto leader of the Chinese military. And Xi Jinping, for now, remains a figurehead, maintained to project unity while the party elders work towards a consensus on the next step. 3 days ago, more information leaked out of China. The same journalist who first exposed He Weidong's arrest released more details about the PLA's ongoing crackdown. And we start piecing it all together. Who was arrested? When they fell? And what positions they held? A startling pattern emerges. It appears Xi Jinping is involuntarily purging his own loyalists, following a script written for him after a failed military coup. But the real shock isn't just that a coup was in the works. It's who was orchestrating it. So was it a Xi Jinping's coup, or was it a Zhang Youxia's coup? So this is what we will get to today. Here, did you guys see the picture? Yeah, okay. So what's unfolding is the violent unraveling of power at the very heart of China's military and political system. And here's today's agenda. First, I will share with you the recent explosive details Mr. Zhao released on the PLA's purges. Then we'll piece together the outlines of a failed military coup attempt. At the end of today's program, I will answer some questions that one of you raised regarding China's population. He asked some very good questions about my previous programs on China's population. So I'll address that at the end. All right, let's get started. I want to show you this man. His name is Zhao Lanjian, and he was the first person who revealed Vice Chairman He Weidong's arrest about right after the two sessions, the annual two sessions. And when did he release that? I think he reviewed the information on March 13th. Yes. But last week, Mr. Zhao dropped another bombshell. He reviewed that on April 17th, the Central Military Commission issued a classified notice to all officers ranked Major General and above, including retired generals. The delivery was tightly controlled. The generals were either allowed to read it on site or had it read aloud to them. There was no recordings allowed, no notes were allowed. The document reviewed stunning new developments in the cases of Miao Hua and He Weidong. The accusations? Well, Miao and He were charged with forming a political faction or factions inside the military. Their crimes were summarized in 5 areas. First, undermining the CMC chairman's absolute control. Number 2, poisoning the military's political environment. Number 3, corrupting the officers. And number 4, sabotaging anti-corruption efforts. Number 5, disrupting personnel planning for the upcoming 21st Party Congress, which is scheduled for 2027. The authorities used rare, damning language to describe their crimes. Atrocious traitors disguised as loyalties. That's what they're being called. And their crimes are unpardonable. Criminal investigations are officially launched or were officially launched against them and their faction. So according to Mr. Zhao, the internal notice was only 2 pages long, but the tone was extraordinarily harsh, tougher than anything seen in years. And shockingly, 1.5 pages were devoted solely to Miao Hua. According to the leaks, here's what happened, okay? So before the 20th Party Congress, Miao Hua once tried and failed to replace Xu Qiliang as CMC vice chairman. After failing, Miao shifted his support behind He Weidong, helping him secure the vice chairman position at the 2022 Party Congress. Maybe I should, show you these two guys. When Miao was arrested, panic swept across the PLA top ranks. 3 top generals, Wang Houbing, the newly promoted Rocket Force commander, Lin Xiangyang, the commander of Eastern Theater Command, and Wang Xiubing, former Southern Theater commanders, reportedly rushed to He Weidong that same night, offering gifts and briberies and begging for protection. Let me show you the pictures of the 3 guys. Here they are. However, it didn't save them. Not long after, He Weidong himself was arrested. And as soon as he was taken into custody, he flipped, immediately naming Wang Houbing, Wang Xiubing, and Lin Xiangyang, the 3 men that you see on the screen, as his co-conspirators. The early findings review that Miao Hua allegedly accepted over 100 million yuan in bribes, and He Weidong pocketed over 60 million yuan. By the way, these numbers are not astronomical numbers by CCP standards. And they're nothing. Given their ranks, the amount of money they embezzled is small. But those are the amounts disclosed in this internal document. So the investigation points to a tangled web of bribery, selling military positions, money for power deals, and personal corruption, notably womanizing. And the digging is still far from over. And Mr. Zhao's revelations didn't stop there. He reported that the case has now been officially classified by the top leadership as a serious political case, one that deeply threatens the PLA. The political faction involved was deemed a major threat to military stability and must be completely rooted out to clear the way for the 21st Party Congress. In addition, the CMC has ordered a new political campaign across the entire military. The main targets? Okay, listen to this. Every officer ranked Major General and above, including retirees, is the target. Everyone is now subject to political vetting. And there's more. If a senior officer wants to leave their local area, they must apply for permission, and the request must be approved through multiple levels. And senior promotions will now follow a new rule, which is better to leave a vacancy than promote the wrong person. So, in short, the military elite are now under soft house arrest. They can't go anywhere without approval, and movements are tightly restricted. And the positions that these purges have left behind, including He Weidong's former seat as vice chairman, will remain empty for the foreseeable future. And the purge wasn't over yet. Just 3 days after the internal notice was distributed, on April 20th, another bombshell hit, according to Mr. Zhao. There's another general who is now under investigation, and his name is He Hongjun. You might not have heard about him in 2025, but I definitely talked about him last year during Xi Jinping's military movements. Let me show you his picture. There's his picture, the picture of his promotion. If you remember, this was last summer. He was promoted last July before the third plenum. Xi Jinping presided a ceremony and awarded He Hongjun his promotion to full general in a special solo ceremony, something extremely unusual. At the same event, Xi Jinping announced that General He is now the executive director or executive deputy director of this CMC's political work department. So he was being groomed to succeed Miao Hua, who was 68 years old, and slated for retirement soon. At the time, Xi Jinping's opponents have already launched attacks on Miao Hua. And so General He was planned as Miao's backup in the event that something happened to Miao. Now, what should be said about, here's a picture of Miao Hua and his backup. So He Hongjun's loyalty to Xi Jinping was even more absolute when compared to Admiral Miao Hua. So Miao Hua was promoted by Jiang Zemin to Major General, and then by Hu Jintao to Lieutenant General. Only later did Xi Jinping promote him to a full general. But He Hongjun was elevated every step of the way by Xi Jinping himself. So from a struggling political officer to Major General, Lieutenant General, full general, and then directly into the military's top political post, He Hongjun was Xi Jinping's purest personal pick, unmatched in the entire PLA. That's why He Hongjun's arrest is so shocking. And it's not just him. At the same time, a director working for him who handles military personnel, his name is Chen Jiang, was also arrested. Chen Jiang was reportedly He Hongjun's close ally. The fall of He Hongjun and one of his close associates marks another brutal blow against Xi Jinping's trusted allies inside the military. Okay, so the above is pretty much what Mr. Zhao disclosed. So how are we going to interpret it? If it's true, it means not only Miao Hua is taken down, but also his backup is down. His backup's backup is also taken down. The purge is thorough, a complete and ruthless wipeout of Xi Jinping's military power base. Someone is making sure there's no chance for Xi Jinping's influence in the army to rise again. So is Xi Jinping crazy? What's going on? Well, first of all, I have to say the leaked information is highly credible. First, it came from the same source who first broke the news of He Weidong's arrest a month ago. Secondly, it offers some incredible details that match information from another independent source, which I will explain later. Third, the timing made sense. This all happened while Xi Jinping was out visiting 3 Southeastern Asian countries. Now let's break down some key points buried in the leaks and the hidden messages we need to pay attention to. First, Miao Hua and He Weidong's cases were linked. They weren't two separate corruption scandals. They were implicated in the same case. Second, they weren't just guilty of corruption. The charges were political and extremely serious. Listen to this. They were seriously undermining the CMC chairman's responsibility system. They were severely disrupting personnel planning for the 20th Party Congress. And they were called atrocious traitors disguised as loyalties. And their crimes were beyond forgiveness. All of it points in the same direction. Miao Hua and He Weidong and their allies weren't just forming cliques. They were plotting to grab military power and control key appointments in the PLA. Think about it. That's the equivalent of plotting a military coup. In CCP's history, only the most dangerous traitors have ever been called great traitors in disguise. That tells you just how serious the accusation is. But here's the big question. Who were they plotting against? Were they trying to overthrow Xi Jinping? I mean, the internal documents that was communicated downward sounds like it. Honestly, I'm not convinced. Yes, it's true that many PLA officers are unhappy with Xi Jinping. They're extremely unhappy with him. But how many of them have the guts to turn against the big boss? So it's hard to believe that Xi Jinping's own top commanders, men he handpicked and fast-tracked to the top, will be willing to risk everything they have to turn against him. The idea that they suddenly went crazy and tried to seize Xi Jinping's power, that just doesn't add up. If one of them was doing that, it may be possible, right? It's possible. But 4 or 5, and a whole list of them were doing that. It's just hard to believe. Now, let's go back to what happened when Miao Hua fell, okay, according to the internal document. So Wang Houbing, Lin Xiangyang, and Wang Xiubing reportedly rushed overnight to He Weidong's home, bringing gifts and money, begging for protection. That's what the internal document said. But here's where it gets very suspicious. First of all, if you're trying to seek protection through bribery, you do it quietly, one-on-one. You don't bring 3 top generals to show up at the same time. That alone tells us this wasn't about personal favors. Something deeper was going on. Secondly, everyone knows that He Weidong rose through the ranks because his ties to Xi Jinping in Fujian and the backing of Miao Hua, because he wasn't that well. He didn't really earn that position because of merit or service. So after Miao's downfall, He Weidong's own position was shaky. He could barely protect himself because his foundation in the PLA isn't as strong as it appears. He got the position purely because of Miao Hua's endorsement and Xi Jinping's friendship with him back in Fujian, right? So he could barely protect himself when Miaohua falls or fell, let alone shield 3 other generals. If these generals really wanted protection, they should have gone to someone outside their faction, like Zhang Youxia, the other vice chairman. So the idea that He Weidong could protect Wang Houbing, Wang Xiubing, and Lin Xiangyang all at once is completely unrealistic. Now imagine the scene. 3 top generals already under suspicion gathering secretly at He Weidong's home. Someone whose position is also seriously in question. That doesn't look like that scenery of the 4 of them meeting together. That doesn't look like bribery. It looks like coordination. It smells like planning. And these weren't random officers. They were Xi Jinping's core war team, handpicked for Taiwan operations. So let me go back to this. Oh, sorry. These 3 men. Who are they? Let's just talk about who they are. Well, Wang Houbing is or was the commander of the Rocket Force. Lin Xiangyang was the commander of the Eastern Theater Command. Wang Xiubing, formerly the commander of the Southern Theater Command, and later he was transferred to the Joint Operations Command Center. And He Weidong, the vice chairman of CMC, who is put in charge of Taiwan strategy. Each held real battlefield authority. These were powerful men in the PLA. Will they really gather in secret in the dead of night just to offer a few million yuan in bribes to a man whose position is as shaky as theirs? Highly unlikely. Well, there's a political analyst who does not believe. His name is Tang Jingyuan. So he is a YouTuber. He does analysis on CCP politics and China affairs. So in his YouTube channel, Mr. Tang said that the 3 generals secretly met with He Weidong to plot a military coup. But it was not a coup against Xi Jinping. Mr. Tang said that they were trying to help Xi Jinping stage a comeback fight. The real target was Zhang Youxia and the party elders. Mr. Tang received information from a reliable source that says that Xi Jinping orchestrated a comeback fight against the party elders, but he failed. So on the surface, He Weidong and the others appeared loyal to Zhang Youxia, but behind the scenes, they were still following Xi Jinping's orders, preparing for action. But they just didn't succeed. That's why they were labeled atrocious traitors disguised as loyalists. Their failed action triggered the massive purge of Xi Jinping's loyalists inside the PLA. Now let's look at the timing. In terms of timing, Miaohua was arrested in November 4th, or his announcement. The official announcement of his downfall was November. 4 months after Xi Jinping allegedly suffered a stroke and lost effective control of the military. That means it took Zhang Youxia and the party elders 4 months to take down Miaohua and force Xi Jinping to announce it. And then from Miao's downfall to He Weidong's arrest, there are another 4 months. This is the time during which Xi Jinping's loyalists staged a coup but failed, which resulted in the massive purge. Now, Mr. Tang revealed that he had received the information about Xi Jinping's attempted comeback. He received the information about a month ago. He didn't share it immediately with the public because he was waiting for more evidence. Now, with Mr. Zhao's latest disclosures, everything lines up. Tang believes the current sweeping purge of Xi Jinping's military faction is the aftermath of Xi Jinping's failed attempt to regain control of the PLA. And if you think about it, this explanation makes the most sense. Otherwise, the idea that Xi Jinping is suddenly and ruthlessly bringing down his own loyalists simply just doesn't add up. On April 23rd, 2025, the CCP held its National Double Support Model Cities Commendation Conference. It's a mouthful to say. Double support means supporting the military and caring for the people. A similar event was held in October 2020, almost 4.5 years ago. But compared to the event in 2020, this time the attendance list revealed 3 major absences. First, Xi Jinping and his top aide, Cai Qi, did not attend the event, breaking long-standing protocol. And then CMC Vice Chairman He Weidong was absent. Zhang Youxia appeared in his absence, or in his place. And then He Hongjun, the general who Xi Jinping promoted last July, whose promotion was meant to back up Miao Hua. So General He was also unexpectedly missing from the event. So these striking absences perfectly line up with what Mr. Zhao leaked, right? It's an indirect way to support Mr. Zhao's information. They offer further proof that the ground under Xi Jinping is rapidly collapsing. Meanwhile, Ms. Ho Qing, the wife of former Singapore Prime Minister Leisrealtalk, has made her own bold moves. She recently reposted a controversial article that bluntly called Xi Jinping a mob boss. She was under pressure to take it down, but she didn't. She then posted another piece titled, "Trump rewards those who bow to his will. China sinks into isolation." Here's an image of her post. And she even posted a picture of Xi Jinping looking so lonely and miserable. So the fact that Ms. Ho Qing is openly reposting articles critical of Xi Jinping shows she no longer fears retaliation, because Singapore is one of the most pro-Beijing countries in Southeast Asia and probably in the world. So where does Ms. Ho's confidence come from? Most likely, it comes from her insider knowledge that Xi Jinping has already lost real power and is simply waiting for the formal announcement of his departure. And when that moment arrives, everything will be clear. And that moment could happen very fast. Some expect the 4th plenum, which is scheduled for this summer. I heard that it's in August. Some people say that will be the stage where Xi Jinping's downfall will be officially sealed. So stay tuned, my friends. Big changes are happening inside China. It's faster than most people can realize. And I think Xi Jinping's days are numbered. So if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe. This is the channel decided. I decided 4 years ago to start a channel that talks about China news that mainstream media or mainstream media outlets don't cover. So I bring you in-depth analysis of everything happening behind China's closed doors. All right, so that's all I will say. And now I want to answer some very good questions brought up by a subscriber who asked me 4 poignant questions regarding China's population. If you follow my channel, then you probably have seen my previous programs on Chinese population. I did quite a number of them. Some were highlight videos edited from my live streams. So his first question was, how do the various secret services, including the CIA, not know the approximate current Chinese population? That's a great question. Well, I don't know what they know or don't know. Right, that's my direct answer. But generally speaking, up until about 5 years ago, the West's understanding of the Chinese Communist regime was very shallow. They took everything the CCP said at face value and went along with it. COVID changed everything. The information about China's population, in my opinion, isn't intelligence, or the information I disclosed about China's population isn't intelligence at all. It's just analytical study, and it's not rocket science. Anyone with some statistical or analytical background can do it. The reason I say it's not intelligence is because, or partly because, no one really knows what China's real population is, not even the CCP. So it's not like they know what their real population is and they try to cover it up. If that's the case, then you could say that whoever has access to that information, has the intelligence, has the information, then that piece of information becomes intelligence, right? But since such knowledge doesn't even exist, so it does not fall into the category of intelligence. No one knows, not even the CCP. So do you think Beijing knows its real population? I don't think so. Officials at all levels within the CCP system deceive each other, deceive their superiors, and they all massage data. So there's no data coming out of China that's accurate. Nobody knows. I did hear that the CCP once secretly estimated that the total COVID casualties in China was around 200 million. But as you can see, so the total casualties is not in the millions or tens of millions, it's in the hundreds of millions. But that's a rough number. So that's my answer to this question. First of all, it's not intelligence because nobody knows. and it's not rocket science. Anyone with some analytical background and skills can do it. And his second question is, has the CCP allowed its population to reduce so drastically for political reasons? I don't think so. I don't think it's part of their design. What will they benefit? Right? Some claim that the regime wanted to reduce the size of the elderly population to save on medical costs and pensions. But all top CCP officials are in this age group. And there are many retired CCP officials and party elites in this age group as well. The CCP would never do anything to risk their own lives. So I do not think it's by design. His third question is, how can the actual Chinese population be more accurately verified? That's a very good question. I call on other analysts, people who are in quantitative analytical work or who does analytical quantitative analysis or statistical analysis, look into this. They should be building models to verify China's population. I'm just a YouTuber trying to make a living by sharing with you information that I could gather about China and Chinese politics. I really don't have the resource or the means to build statistical models to look into this. If I could do that, I'll probably have to pause this for 2 weeks or 3 weeks to build the model. And I don't think I should spend my time doing that. So I call upon all of you or some of you who have the means and the skills and the background to do that. However, I don't think you can ever find out How many people actually died during the pandemic because the CCP has destroyed the evidence? So don't go into that route. Don't try to figure out how many people actually died, because it's going to be very difficult. Because CCP has destroyed the evidence. Hospitals were ordered to destroy documents and files related to COVID a few years ago. So I think the only way to find out China's real population accurately is to do a census and see how many people are actually there today. But we'll have to wait until the CCP becomes history to find out. As long as the CCP stays in power, there won't be any way to accurately verify China's population. All other works are just, analytical and statistical analysis. There's no direct proof of China's population until we do a census. But that's not going to happen soon. His fourth question is, if your predictions are correct, then why is it not a topic? Why is it not a topic in Western media, particularly when discussing the impact of US tariffs? That's an excellent question. I have had this question for all these years because I'm not getting satisfying answers from mainstream media. I started this YouTube channel to fill a void. Western media, unfortunately, or Western media outlets have been, unfortunately, heavily infiltrated by the CCP. For the past 20 plus years, they have made a lot of friends in China who have not served them well. Some even employed the children and grandchildren of high-ranking CCP officials. So what do you think their coverage of China would be? The New York Times is probably the most notorious example. Its chief editor was stationed in China for a number of years. He has a Chinese wife, and they're close to top CCP officials, including, I think he's very close to former CCP leader Jiang Zemin, who rose to the top because of his support of the bloody crackdown on the students. So what can you expect from a media outlet whose chief editor is personally close to a dictator and a murderer? Some of the New York Times coverage, in my opinion, is very anti-America. Where do you think that came from? It didn't happen overnight. It's from years of being friendly with the CCP. And in my opinion, the only media outlets that can objectively cover China news without fear of repercussions are those who don't have any operations in China. Unfortunately, all media outlets with offices and personnel in China are subject to CCP's manipulation. I'm not trying to discredit all mainstream media outlets, but when it comes to China news, I'm sorry to say they don't have a lot to offer because some of them are embroiled in CCP factional politics. Some are connected to the Xi Jinping faction, and others are tied to the anti-Xi factions. So unfortunately, if you operate inside China, you are subject to the influence of CCP politics. It's inevitable. So that's the reason why the mainstream media don't cover important topics such as China's population. Now, do you think that they are totally ignorant because they don't suspect China's population is so much lower than what's claimed? Of course they do. These people are not stupid. Of course they know, but they choose not to report it. They choose to do the right thing, not to upset the CCP. They have been doing this for the past 20 years. I won't get into the details. That has been the case. They know China's population is seriously questionable. So are so many other China experts, but they just choose to be quiet. Why do they choose to be quiet? You have to ask them. I hope when you see them next time, you should ask them this question. You should ask them intelligent questions. Ask them, why do they not cover China news in the way that they ought to be, that they ought to cover? I think you should ask them. and not me? But those are excellent questions that he brought up, and I'm very happy to answer them here. All right, that's all for today. I mean, for the talk part, let me see what questions people have for me, and let me first of all acknowledge those who gave me um, super stickers. Let me just get rid of this. Okay. How's the internet speed? I don't know what has happened to. Um, I paid a lot of money to have very fast internet, but when it comes to my live stream, the speed seems to be a problem. And someone try to help me here. I don't know what happened. Mike Stewart from Canada, unsure of what the CCP really is and what its influence in your country means. Invest an hour of your time to watch a Frank, I think that's a German name, lecture. Your children and grandchildren freedom will thank you. All right, I don't know this Frank guy. So what? Tell me a little bit of what he said. Um, all right. Manny, Kyla, what is your opinion on China Observer channel? Somebody asked me this question. They have a very different style. I think they fill a void. They gather first-hand information shared by Chinese public, by the Chinese public on social media that give us first-hand knowledge of what's happening on the ground. Because the state media and Western media are not covering China news in a way that they ought to cover. So these social media posts, videos, and talks become extremely valuable in give us a firsthand knowledge of what's happening on the ground. So that's what they do. Now, are all of these videos 100% accurate and truthful? Not necessarily, right? Not all the times, but it's very important that we have this information. But what I think is missing is the analysis part or the analytical part. So they are extremely valuable in gathering this information and compiling these information and offer a view. But I think the analytical part or the conclusions that we can draw from this compilation of information is a little weak. And that's where people like myself comes in, to offer analysis. But I think they do provide valuable insight into China. Okay, all right. Charles Womack, excellent show. Well, thank you, Charles. I feel like this today's talk finally solved the question that I have had in my head about who is really purging, Xi Jinping's loyalists and why, right? We've seen this happening for a number of weeks or a number of months, but there's always that question: why is he purging all of these people? So I think the two separate sources of information together paint a good picture of what's possibly happening in Zhongnanhai. So I think I'm very satisfying. I mean, this talk is very satisfying to me in answering that question. Many Kaila, is honey commonly used in Chinese cuisine? It's expensive. Honey is expensive compared with sugar. So it's not commonly used in Chinese cuisine, but it's often used like a Chinese tea, like in herbal diet, in herbal tea or Chinese tea, yeah, in Chinese drinks or health drinks, they use honey. Because honey has certain medicinal benefits according to Chinese medicine. But for Chinese cooking, it's too expensive. Thank you, but thank you for the support. All right. You won. Well, thank you, Mr. Wan, or I assume it's a Mr. Wan. I could be wrong. Um, all right. Here's Cosmira Flanagan. Thank you again. Well, thank you. All right. Tio Rico. Great job. Any thoughts on Singapore Prime Minister saying this week that they will slow or stop trade with the USA? I think they're under pressure. I heard that Wang Yi gave them a hard time on the 2 posts by the former First Lady. I think this could be just a statement that the current PM, is saying just to appease Beijing's anger. That could be the case. Nowadays, I think we shouldn't take by what politicians say. We should follow what they do, right? They could be saying anything, but words don't count. Their actions do. Okay, all right. Oh, here's Cosmira Flanagan. How many princelings can afford US golden citizen card at 5 million? I think all of them can afford that. They all have more than 5 million US dollars. How many? It's said that 500 CCP families control all of China's industries. So 500 families, you assume each family, I mean, there are like 2 generations of princelings now. Thousands of them? Yeah, they're in the thousands. And some of them are already in the US. Some of them already have, I think most of them already have family members, holding a green card or having a passport, a US passport. So they're already settled. All right. Alan Mandel, did PLA seize a Philippine reef and a small Vietnamese island? Secondly, could China dump US treasuries all at once to cause turmoil in global markets? I think that's their plan. I mean, according to a leaked strategy, it was a secret, it was a strategy the CCP issued. And then the leaked information came from another Chinese dissident, Professor Yuan Hongbin. So according to that strategy, or CCP's strategy, they plan to dump US treasuries and US equity holdings all at once to cause turmoil in global markets. But the question is, would the party elders and Zhang Youxia allow this to happen? Right? So whether or not that will happen depends on the status of CCP's infighting. I don't think the princelings or the red families or a significant of the a significant portion or faction of the princelings, of the princeling community, wanted to see that happen because it will severely affect their wealth. Although some of the princelings don't mind that from happening at all. So it will not happen easily. But whether or not it will happen depends on the status of CCP's power struggles and Xi Jinping's power, the status of his authorities. So that's why it's so important to keep a close eye on the status of Xi Jinping's authority. A lot of things could change the moment he steps down. But that's an excellent question. Thank you. And thank you for the super stickers. All right. Vanket. Thank you, Vanket. James Curry. Thank you, James. All right. I reached the bottom of all the super stickers. It's Sunday. Oh, here's one more from Marcus Garcia. One sign of a falling regime is the flight of educated people. Do you know of any evidence of this phenomena in China? Well, the ones who have the means and the channels to leave China probably have already left or are on their way out. But it's very difficult. It's very difficult for them to leave now. On one hand, the CCP is trying to prevent the elite class from leaving China. And on the other hand, it's also very difficult for them to obtain the visa from Western countries for them to come. So it's difficult on both ends. But those who wanted to leave, or those who really wanted to leave, a lot of them have already left. Okay, here's a question forwarded by Chris from Rob Vola. What would this group of military officials have in common? What common ideology do they share, if there's one? What they have in common, they are all closely related to Xi Jinping. And they got into positions of power because of Xi Jinping and because of Miao Hua, because Miao Hua was the head of HR for the PLA. So that's their common, that's the commonality that brought them together. So that's what I said. It's highly unlikely that they all get together to oppose Xi, even though they dislike what Xi Jinping does. But they're not going to risk everything they have to openly trying to overthrow Xi Jinping. That's unlikely. All right. Miao Hu, his name is Miao Hua. Yeah. Okay. All right. That's all for today. I thank you very much for joining me. I think I'll start my weekend now. All right. Thank you very much. I'll see you next week or this week. All right. Thank you, Kirk from Cahill. Thank you. All right. Bye.